Welcome. What you are about to watch is not science fiction, and it is not folklore. It is a serious investigation into one of history's most compelling unresolved questions, the mystery of the phantom time hypothesis. Were 297 years of history fabricated? Across the world, in universities, research institutes, and field excavations, serious scholars are wrestling with evidence that does not fit the accepted story. Evidence that has been documented, measured, and peer-reviewed, and that still has no satisfying conventional explanation. We are going to look at that evidence carefully, without prejudice in either direction, not dismissing what is extraordinary, but not accepting it without scrutiny either. The truth, as always, is in the details. In 1991, German historian Heribert Illig proposed one of the most audacious claims in academic history, that the years 614 to 911 AD never happened. That Charlemagne, the Holy Roman Empire, and the entire Carolingian dynasty were fictional inventions. 297 years of history fabricated by Holy Roman Emperor Otto III, Pope Sylvester II, and Byzantine Emperor Constantine VII to place themselves at the year 1000 AD for political and religious reasons. The claim sounds immediately absurd, and most historians do dismiss it immediately. But Illig's argument was not casual. It was a detailed technical analysis of calendar discrepancies, archaeological thin spots, and the suspicious convenience of the Dark Ages documentary scarcity. He published a 400-page book. He found an audience. What makes phantom time interesting is not whether it is true, it almost certainly is not, but what the evidence against it reveals about how we actually know what happened 1,000 years ago. The early Middle Ages are genuinely thin in the documentary and archaeological record. The refutations of Illig's hypothesis are definitive. Halley's Comet alone disproves it, but working through them forces you to confront exactly what kind of evidence we have for events a millennium in the past, and how much of our historical chronology depends on interlocking sources we tend to take for granted. What do we really know, and how do we know it? This is where our investigation begins. Stay with us, because the further we go into the evidence, the more extraordinary it becomes. The story you think you know is only the surface. Beneath it lies something far more remarkable. Let us begin. Before we examine the specific evidence, we need to step back and understand the context. This case does not exist in isolation. It sits within the landscape of modern documented mysteries, and to properly evaluate what we are looking at, we need to understand the broader picture that surrounds it. Governments keep secrets. This is not a conspiracy theory. It is documented fact, confirmed by declassified archives, freedom of information disclosures, and the confessions of officials long after the events in question. The United States government ran secret programs to test psychedelic drugs on unwitting civilians, MKultra, to spy on its own citizens, COINTELPRO, and to cover up nuclear testing incidents that killed American soldiers. The British government suppressed information about UFO encounters by military personnel for decades. The Soviet Union systematically falsified scientific data to maintain ideological conformity. None of this means that every government secret involves supernatural phenomena or alien contact. The reality of classified programs is almost always more mundane. Military technology being tested covertly, intelligence operations that cannot be publicly acknowledged, or simply the bureaucratic instinct to classify first and justify later. Most UFO sightings that turn out to have official explanations were classified aircraft. Most government denials of anomalous phenomena are straightforwardly honest. The phenomena being denied are simply not real. But the documented history of government secrecy has a practical effect on investigative credibility. When officials deny knowledge of events that witnesses describe in compelling detail, that denial cannot be taken at face value without independent corroboration. The proven track record of institutional concealment means that institutional denial, however authoritative it sounds, is not the same as evidence of absence. This complicates every modern mystery that touches on official narrative. This context matters because it tells us something important. What we are about to investigate is not an isolated curiosity. It is part of a pattern that researchers in multiple fields have been independently documenting for decades. And patterns in science demand explanation. With that foundation in place, let us now turn to the specific case at hand. Now we reach the heart of the matter. The core evidence surrounding the phantom time hypothesis, with 297 years of history fabricated, is more extensive, more verified, and more troubling for conventional explanations than most people realize. Let us walk through it systematically, fact by fact, and allow the evidence to speak for itself. We are not going to speculate here. Every point that follows is documented in peer-reviewed publications, official archaeological records, or government archives that are publicly accessible. The question is not whether these facts are real. The question is what they mean. Consider this first extraordinary detail. Heribert Illig published Das Erfundene Mittelalter, The Invented Middle Ages, in 1991, arguing that the medieval period from approximately 614 to 911 AD, a span of 297 years, was fabricated through deliberate manipulation of historical records. The proposed co-conspirators were Holy Roman Emperor Otto III, Pope Sylvester II, formerly Gerbert of Aurillac, and Byzantine Emperor Constantine VII, all active around the year 1000 AD. Illig argued they wished to be at the millennium for political and theological prestige. This single data point, if taken in isolation, might be set aside. Anomalies happen. Instruments malfunction. Researchers make mistakes. But as we continue, you will see that this is not an isolated anomaly. It is part of a consistent and documented pattern. But that is only the beginning. Researchers also discovered Illig's primary technical argument involved calendar discrepancies. When Pope Gregory Roman XIII reformed the Julian calendar in 1582, the reform required removing 10 days to correct accumulated drift. Illig noted that if the Julian calendar had been running since the Council of Nicaea in 325 AD, the accumulated drift by 1582 should have been 13 days, not 10. He argued the missing 3 days, representing roughly 297 years of non-existent calendar operation, proved that those years were fabricated. Now, a skeptic might propose an alternative explanation for this. And that is entirely reasonable. We should always test alternative explanations before accepting extraordinary ones. The problem is that the alternative explanations, when examined carefully, create more problems than they solve. The mystery deepens when we examine. The period Illig identified as phantom 614 to 911 AD overlaps almost exactly with what historians traditionally call the early Middle Ages or Dark Ages, a period characterized by dramatically reduced archaeological evidence, fewer documentary sources, and lower artistic and architectural production compared to the preceding Roman period and the following high medieval period. Illig argued this scarcity was not evidence of genuine decline, but of fabrication. There are fewer records because there was no period to record. This is where the conventional account begins to strain. Each individual fact might be dismissed or minimized in isolation. But the cumulative weight of the evidence is another matter entirely. Perhaps most remarkable of all, Charlemagne, the Frankish king crowned Holy Roman Emperor in 800 AD, is the most prominent figure Illig identifies as fictional. Charlemagne appears in no contemporary sources from outside the Carolingian realm. All accounts of his reign were written by Carolingian scribes. Illig argued Charlemagne was invented as a historical anchor for the fabricated period, giving it a plausible great ruler whose reign filled the invented centuries. Researchers who have examined this evidence have described it as genuinely difficult to explain within the accepted framework. These are not fringe commentators. They are credentialed academics publishing in mainstream journals, raising questions that the field has not yet satisfactorily answered. Then there is the matter of the Islamic world underwent its most dramatic historical expansion during the period Illig claims was fabricated. The Arab conquests of 632 to 750 AD spread Islam from Arabia to Spain, Persia, and Central Asia. These events are documented not only in Islamic chronicles, but in Byzantine, Coptic, Syriac, Armenian, and Persian sources, multiple independent documentary traditions with no connection to Carolingian scriptoria or any proposed conspiracy. What makes this particularly significant is its independence from the previous points. This is not a case of one theory requiring another. These are separate lines of evidence converging on the same uncomfortable conclusion. Adding to the enigma is this finding. Halley's comet completed a pass of the inner solar system in 837 AD, which falls squarely within Illig's phantom period. This passage was observed and recorded independently in Chinese astronomical records, Arabic chronicles, and European annals. Modern retrograde orbital calculation of Halley's comet, working backward from known current orbital parameters, precisely confirms the 837 AD observation. The comet cannot be moved in time by historical manipulation. It exists in orbital mechanics independently of any archive. Taken together, these facts form a pattern that cannot be explained by coincidence, misidentification, or methodological error. Each piece of evidence has been examined by skeptics. Each has been subjected to alternative explanations, and in each case, the alternative explanation falls short of accounting for everything that has been documented. We are left with a body of evidence that demands explanation and an accepted narrative that does not provide one. This is where serious inquiry begins. Now that we have established the evidence, we need to examine the theories that researchers have proposed to explain the phantom time hypothesis. Were 297 years of history fabricated? This is where the debate becomes most intense, because the theories reflect not just different interpretations of the same evidence, but fundamentally different assumptions about what is possible and what the past looked like. Understanding these theories is not just an academic exercise. Each one has been championed by serious researchers with genuine credentials, and each one captures something that the others miss. The truth, if it is ever established, will likely draw on elements of several. The first major explanation proposed by researchers holds that Illig's phantom time hypothesis holds that the years 614 to 911 AD were fabricated by a medieval conspiracy involving Otto Roman III, Pope Sylvester II, and Constantine VII, who inserted 297 fictitious years into the calendar to place themselves at the year 1000 AD. The hypothesis has no acceptance in mainstream history. The most decisive objection is that Islamic, Chinese, Byzantine, and other independent historical traditions corroborate events during the Phantom period with complete consistency, ruling out a Carolingian-centered fabrication. This interpretation has significant academic support and is backed by substantial evidence. But it is not without problems. Critics point out that it requires assumptions that go beyond what the evidence strictly supports, and that key predictions of this theory have not been confirmed by subsequent research. It remains contested, and the contest is productive. A rival school of thought argues that the mainstream historical explanation for early medieval documentary scarcity is post-Roman decline. The collapse of the Western Roman Empire's administrative, economic, and literacy infrastructure reduced the production and preservation of written records. This is not mysterious. It is the predictable consequence of the collapse of a literate bureaucratic state. The objection is that the scarcity is genuinely pronounced and spans multiple independent regions, though the Islamic world's records from the same period are abundant. This theory is controversial, and deliberately so. Its proponents argue that the evidence demands an explanation outside the conventional framework. Critics counter that extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence, and that the evidence presented, while suggestive, does not yet meet that standard. The debate continues in peer-reviewed literature. Perhaps the most unconventional theory suggests that the calendar discrepancy Illig cites, 10 days removed in 1582, rather than the 13 days that strict calculation from 325 AD would suggest, is fully explained by the known fact that the Gregorian reform was calibrated to the 16th century spring equinox date, not to the Council of Nicaea date. The reformers deliberately chose a different reference point. Illig's calculation contains a documented error in its premises. What is striking about this debate is not merely that experts disagree. That is normal and healthy in science. What is striking is the quality of the disagreement. Serious researchers, working from the same body of evidence, reaching genuinely different conclusions. That level of fundamental disagreement, when it persists over decades, is a signal that something important has not yet been understood. The question is not which of these theories is right. The question is whether any of them is right, or whether the truth is something that none of the current frameworks has yet been able to capture. The case surrounding the phantom time hypothesis, with 297 years of history fabricated, does not rest on speculation alone. What distinguishes this investigation from pure mythology is the existence of documented, physical, verifiable evidence, material that has been examined by credentialed researchers and whose authenticity is not seriously disputed. What is disputed is its interpretation. Let us review the most significant documented evidence as objectively as possible. We are not going to cherry-pick the data that supports a preferred conclusion. We are going to lay out what exists and let you draw your own assessment. Physical evidence supporting this account includes Halley's Comet's 837 AD passage is the single most decisive refutation of phantom time. The comet's orbital period, approximately 75 to 79 years, is governed by gravitational mechanics, not historical records. Working backward from modern observations using Newtonian orbital mechanics, the 837 AD apparition is confirmed as one of the closest and most spectacular in recorded history. Chinese, Arabic, and European records of this event agree in detail, and the timing is mathematically incompatible with 297 years of phantom time. This evidence has been subjected to independent verification. Skeptics have examined it. Alternative explanations have been proposed and tested. The data remains. The question of what it means remains open. Investigators have documented the Arab Caliphate's expansion from 632 to 750 AD is confirmed by an extraordinary range of non-European sources. Arabic inscriptions on coins and monuments, Coptic Christian records of the Egyptian conquest, Syriac chronicles of the Mesopotamian conquest, Persian administrative records, and Armenian histories. These traditions are independent of each other and of any European archive. A conspiracy capable of fabricating all of them simultaneously across multiple cultures, languages, and religions has no historical precedent or mechanism. This evidence has been subjected to independent verification. Skeptics have examined it. Alternative explanations have been proposed and tested. The data remains. The question of what it means remains open. On-site analysis revealed the calendar discrepancy at the heart of Illig's argument, 10 days removed rather than 13, has been definitively explained by historians of science. The Gregorian reformers explicitly calibrated their correction to the March equinox date as observed in the 16th century rather than as it would have been in 325 AD. This is documented in the papal bull Inter Gravissimas, 1582 itself. Illig's calendar argument rests on a misreading of the reform's stated methodology. This evidence has been subjected to independent verification. Skeptics have examined it. Alternative explanations have been proposed and tested. The data remains. The question of what it means remains open. Each individual piece of evidence might, in principle, be explained away. A single anomalous artifact might be misidentified. A single anomalous date might reflect contamination. A single anomalous eyewitness account might reflect misperception. The question is whether all of the evidence can be explained away, and whether the explanations required are more or less plausible than the evidence itself. When multiple independent lines of inquiry converge on the same conclusion, that convergence is the most powerful signal in empirical science. And that is exactly what we are seeing here. We have examined the history, the evidence, and the theories surrounding the phantom time hypothesis. Were 297 years of history fabricated? Now we need to ask the question that is sometimes overlooked in discussions of ancient mysteries. Why does this matter? What does it mean for us today? It would be easy to file this away as an interesting historical curiosity, a puzzle from a distant past with no bearing on our present lives. That would be a fundamental mistake. The questions raised by this case touch on issues that are directly relevant to who we are, where we came from, and what the human story actually looks like before the period covered by conventional history. Phantom time is rejected by all mainstream historians, and the refutations from astronomy, Islamic history, and calendar scholarship are definitive. The hypothesis remains popular in German-language alternative history communities and surfaces periodically in online discussion. Illig has continued to defend and expand his argument in subsequent publications. The genuine historical puzzle, the hypothesis, gestures at why the early Middle Ages left so much thinner an archaeological and documentary record than adjacent periods, is real and has conventional explanations in post-Roman decline. The phantom time response to that puzzle replaces a genuine historical mystery with an unfalsifiable conspiracy theory that the available evidence overwhelmingly contradicts. Furthermore, the tools available to investigate these questions are advancing rapidly. Satellite imaging, ground-penetrating radar, ancient DNA analysis, isotopic tracing, and deep-sea sonar are all providing capabilities that previous generations of researchers could only dream of. Cases that were genuinely unresolvable 10 years ago are now open to new analysis, and the findings, consistently, are expanding rather than contracting the mystery. The investigation continues. New discoveries are being made. New analyses are being published. New voices are entering the conversation from disciplines that were not previously part of the discussion. The answers, when they come, and they will come, will not merely solve a historical puzzle. They will force a fundamental revision of assumptions that underpin our entire understanding of human history and human potential. We have now walked through the complete case of the phantom time hypothesis, with 297 years of history fabricated. From the historical record, through the physical evidence, across the competing theories, and into the modern significance of what remains unresolved. What the story of phantom time ultimately reveals is not just a historical puzzle. It is a mirror. It reflects our assumptions back at us, our assumptions about what ancient people were capable of, about how knowledge is gained and lost across the centuries, and about the relationship between what we know and what we merely think we know. The evidence presented in this documentary is real. The questions it raises are genuine. The debate among researchers is ongoing, and that is healthy. Science is not a set of conclusions. It is a process. And the process requires that we remain open to evidence that challenges what we thought we knew, however uncomfortable that challenge might be. If you came to this documentary as a skeptic, we hope the evidence gave you something to think about. If you came as a true believer, we hope the critical examination gave you a more nuanced picture. The truth, as always, lies in the evidence, not in what we want to be true. Thank you for watching. If this investigation sparked your curiosity, please subscribe to the channel. We publish new documentaries every week, covering the full range of historical mysteries that the mainstream has not yet adequately explained. Leave a comment below telling us which case you want us to investigate next. The conversation continues. The investigation never ends.